Ryan White is with me today. Probably this is Election Tuesday, the 10/5 of 2024, and it's only hours from now that we will find out who is going. No, probably could be tomorrow, could be Friday, could be 3 weeks from now.
Well,
Anyway,
you said 10-5, and I'm going to tell you it's
11,
11-5.
11, 5, 11, 5.
So you're a month in the past. It's amazing. Your time travel skills are fantastic.
Again, I'm so good at this. All right, so we're not going to talk about the elections at all. What we're going to do is we're going to start with the country known as China.
I've heard of it.
And this morning, there were reports out of China that the Tesla vehicles in October, I think it's right this time, in October, did not get to the numbers that any of us would have liked them to have gotten to in terms of invoiced, I suppose, is the number they're looking at.
Hmm.
Was this because we didn't produce enough, didn't sell enough, or is the number out of China for the quarter include or not include vehicles that might be in port, might be getting ready to get on a ship? Are there possibilities that this number is a little understated?
So it's tough to say because I don't know which number. I haven't seen the number you're talking about, but I can share generally the ideas here. Um, China used to be subject to the delivery wave. As we remember, they would always front load the quarters going out so that at the beginning of the quarter, all the shipments are going to other countries. And then at the end of the quarter, they would focus on local deliveries. They've been working to unwind that over the years, and to an extent they have. But some markets are still have waves. If you look at Korea, all the deliveries come in the last month of the quarter, with one or two coming the following month, and then they stock up the demand again, load up the boat again, send it again. What I think is more likely that we're seeing in China is that the competition in China has genuinely arrived.
Mm.
You've got Xiaomi making their car, which is slightly cheaper than a Model 3 and slightly better than a Model 3. And all they had to do to make it was spend years of time, billions of dollars, and then sell them at a loss. They've been making them, they were able to ramp quickly because they didn't build their own factory, but partnered with SAIC, or is it BAIC? I think it might be one of the two. Both exist, but and they've been using their manufacturing license, which is a neat way of saying they've been using their factory. They just got their own factory certification, I think, last month, but that doesn't mean it's really their factory. So not only is Xiaomi losing money on it, but it's very reasonable to assume that the government-owned manufacturing facility is losing additional money on it. You're probably getting a $60,000, $70,000 car for 35 grand. Those are gonna sell like hotcakes. The only limit to how many you can sell is how much money you're willing to lose. But this is a showpiece. It is a really great car. Jim Farley drives one, has driven one for months, which is funny because you're not supposed to be able to import them, but they imported it for engineering purposes, and then they just slap manufacturer tags on it, and it's street legal in Michigan. Any state really, but definitely where Jim Farley would be driving it. It's a great car. So I think we're seeing a lot of people looking at other cars because even with the refresh, the Model 3 is no longer as tech forward and exciting as it once was, where these other manufacturers are pushing the envelope daily. So I think it would be reasonable to assume that at least with Model 3, but probably other models as well, demand is eroding some of the delivery numbers.
The number that came in was 68,000 and some change. 68,280, which was down 5.3 from last year's October.
So
Um,
I'm not worried about that. Annualize it. You're at what would that be? Like 8.3, 830,000, 820,000, something like that. That is still a very strong number. And it is reasonable to assume that at quarter end, you do have a lot of unsold units that are in transit, even if they're just in transit locally. So I'm not super worried about that. And it could be, if it is off 5%, that wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, there's a lot of very effective competition in China.
Right. Okay. Then next would be on my list. Oh, see, I've lost my list. There you go. This is going to make it really interesting, Brian. We may not be able to continue. See.
I'm deeply concerned.
So the next thing on my list would be in terms of yes, it would be so with China being a a big piece, a very large piece of the total numbers for the fourth quarter. AJ has shown some concern. Certainly, Triteslike has shown some concern that it's going to be very difficult to get to the 500 and almost 15,000 that would make it one more car than 2023. How worried are you about that? Do you think that it's still well within the range of reason? Do you think that Elon will, as I've said before, stand in the middle of the 405 freeway and sell cars one at a time if he has to get to that number?
First of all, I love that image. That's great. Tesla, get your hot, fresh Teslas. So what I think is that Cybertruck is going to make up for some of it. If concern is the wrong question, it's the wrong word. If the reason that they don't hit the target is because they've taken part or all of the Model Y line down in Shanghai for retooling for the refreshed Juniper edition, great. That means that's just pausing during the race to put a new tire on your bike. It's fine. It's a pit stop is what it is in almost literal terms. So I made a video about BYD's growth. BYD is knocking it out of the park. But BYD is doing the old car thing. They've got, 20 models available in China. They've got something for everyone from very cheap to awfully nice. And that works. That will help you grow your market. And remarkably, BYD is profitable. They are making good margins on those sales. They, of course, get government support, but name a car company in the world that doesn't. It's unfair that China's helping these companies. Have you seen how much the US has helped our manufacturers? It's also a bit ridiculous. But does this mean that BYD will surpass Tesla, take the lead, and never give it back? Maybe, but I feel like we're asking the wrong question. When you ask the wrong question, of course, the right answer becomes quite difficult. If BYD doesn't have a robotaxi and Tesla does, the game is over. There's no competing with that. Now, Tesla kind of spilled the beans a bit. They've given the other manufacturers a roadmap to chase. So if we hadn't had 1010, if we didn't see what's coming with the robotaxi, if they just kept it all under wraps until it was ready to go, I think it would have caught a lot of the competitors flat-footed. But China pays attention. That's why their super heavy launch system hasn't taken off yet. And they do have heavy launch, but they are following Starship. And they do not wish to get ahead of Starship because that means that they'll have to do more work. And it's not stealing, it's just looking at ideas that actually work. So with Waymo, you're looking at a $150,000 car versus Tesla's $25,000, $30,000 car. Right there over the life of the Waymo vehicle, and they're using, Kias, Hyundais. They've been using Jaguar I-Paces, but they've got a partnership agreement with Hyundai, which basically means we just agreed to buy a bunch of them. That car's not going to last 300,000-400,000 miles. It's going to last 150 if you treat it well, if you're lucky. 150 for a $150,000 car means the first buck a mile goes to pay for the car. That's insane. If the Waymo taxi works exactly as good as the Tesla taxi, the Waymo taxi doesn't stand a chance. And if BYD isn't making robo-taxis that are $25,000, $30,000, their sales are not meaningful. Those metrics don't cross over directly. So will they sell fewer cars? I think the better question is, how do you feel about this statement? BYD will become the world leader in manually driven automobiles. Does that excite you? Doesn't excite me. And this is before we even start talking about Optimus and other lines of business. BYD does sell stationary storage solutions, ESSs, like the Megapack, but Teslas remain more appealing to a lot of buyers because they're more reliable, than any of the other systems out there, and they're very good at predicting when they need to charge up and discharge.
Okay, so my next subject for today for you is Juniper. Um,
Mhm.
you know,
What's that?
we saw Juniper theoretically in Pasadena like 3 months ago, 2 months ago. We've now seen them in the wild in China. Any updates on Juniper? Do you think we were told that they started not we were told, China News Daily or something reported that they started manufacturing last Monday. What do we know? What do you know? What do you think?
So the leak we got that they were starting internal production on October 22nd appears to have been largely accurate. So that was a good bit of leak there. I think someone posted it on social media. The news ran with it and were correct this time. Very fortunate. The timelines line up. When we saw the first appearance of it on the road, I made a video explaining how that timeline would fit based on what we knew from previous vehicle spottings of new models. And that's about how much time you need to road test, get anything ironed out that needs to be. The Model Y could be on a slightly accelerated schedule. It's been quicker to market on everything than the Model 3 has, because it is kind of a Model 3. It's like a Model 3. When they made the factory to build the Model Y in China, it came online just as quickly as the Model 3 line. When they announced the Model Y, they said it'll be out late next year, second half. And it didn't. It came out before second half. It came out, or at the very, very beginning of the second half. And it was 6 to 9 months ahead of people's expectations. And it was 365 days from unveiling to release. Elon has said no Juniper in 24. That's great. We've got 5, 6 weeks left. Or I guess 7 or 8 weeks left. It'll be poised to launch in big numbers, I believe, in January in
And
China.
and any theory that it might launch in Berlin or California?
So, not California, but
Oh,
in
not so.
Texas, we've seen uh, them unpacking equipment that's been sitting in wait for 6 to 9 months. And some of that equipment may be battery material for additional lines, but some of it we know is a stamping press. They could be starting to configure the stamping right now and have all those parts made on what is effectively the second line so that they don't actually shut the first line down. They just start making it on the second line. I think Fremont would be last to get it because the place is so crowded and so chaotic that it'd be nice to get Texas up to speed first and then do it. So what I would expect is what we saw with the Model 3. And this is something I predicted, but other manufacturers haven't done. So I was pretty proud of this one. They will go one model trim at a time. It might be the performance that comes first. It might be the long range. One model will come
Bundle.
first. In Shanghai, they let the performance be the last one to come because if you want a performance model, you have a decision to make. Are you going to wait or are you going to just get one today? Because we really do still need to sell all of these first. So that would be a good way to avoid having to offer inventory price cuts to get rid of the last remaining models. And those other remaining models, even if they're only $500 cheaper or $1,000 cheaper, fleet buyers don't care what model year it is.
Oh, yes, okay. And then Berlin, it would seem like if any place was, I mean, now I said this about the Model 3 too, and apparently I was wrong. But if any place was going to really get a bump in sales from the Juniper, it would seem like it would be Europe. Any word, anything coming out of Europe?
They have more space. They could do the same thing we just discussed in Texas, where they set up a parallel line to begin manufacturing them. But news out of Berlin is harder to get. Berlin doesn't allow flyovers of the site. They allow the drone pilots to fly next to the site, very gracious of them, but only on weekends. So we don't get to see the deliveries coming and going. We don't get to do like Joe does in Texas, where we can read the labels on the crates coming in and have a pretty good idea what's going on inside. So no information out of Berlin doesn't mean it's not happening, just means we don't know.
So while we're doing Germany, this is not a Tesla issue, except to the extent it's about the competition. Germany and Europe seem to be falling apart in the automotive space with layoffs and factory closings, and get this morning it was I'm going to forget the name of the company that does the
Bosch.
Bosch, the transmissions and such. Bosch laying off 7,000. Is Germany out of the car business, or what do you think?
No, it's just a lull. Bosch, I assume all 7,000 layoffs were in the spark plug division because they famously make spark plugs. No, Bosch makes everything. That Bosch made the entire drive system for the Fisker. Congrats. When I had a chance to talk with them at CES this year, they said, here's our Gen 1 electric drivetrain. Here's our Gen 2, which is this much better in all these ways. I go, Gen 1, huh? What does that go into? He's like, well, I'm not allowed to say, but it goes into a SUV for an American manufacturer. I'm like, it's Fisker. He's like, I can't say that. I can't tell you that. But obviously it is because it is. The problem with that drivetrain was Fisker wanted to have it made their way, and Bosch said, we need to make it a way that actually works. We have way more R&D money than you, and too many cooks in the kitchen. So that's crazy. But Bosch, yeah, could be in trouble. Total sales are down in Europe, but sales of EVs are up. VW, BMW, Mercedes, they're all posting higher EV sales figures. And the problem with that is those EV sales are eating into their own existing sales and doing so at a much lower margin, if any margin at all. So selling less total and some of that being at a loss or close to it is not a good recipe for success. But the fact that EVs are growing is hopeful because all vehicles in Europe will be electric by in about 10 years. I think 2035 is still the cutoff for sale of new petrol powered vehicles. So they're in an uncomfortable position that we predicted, that we all predicted. So,
Well, okay, let's go back over then to the Berlin to the German factory. They've just hired permanently 500 temps, and there was a statement put out that they needed 300 additional workers. That would seem to imply that they're gearing up for something there. So the 2.5, we just talked about the 2.5. Do you think it's more about the 2.5? Because the Juniper switchover, they wouldn't necessarily need more people to do that. What do you think's going on in Berlin that they need to permanently hire? Because when you permanently hire people in Germany, it's a decision.
mm-hmm. It's a commitment.
It's a commitment.
I think you're right. I think if they were going to just set up a parallel line for Model Y, that they wouldn't need to add 500 people. They would need to add people, but not 500, maybe 100. So maybe they are ramping up to make the interim vehicle there. And that leads me to an idea, which I just got, Randy. Here you go. Here's your exclusive. What if they set up the second line to run Juniper, and as soon as that's running, they convert the first line to make interim compacts?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, could happen.
I think that's quite possible, and it would explain the staffing increase.
Yeah, yeah. All right. All right. Good, good, good. All right. Well, I'm very interested to hear because the opportunity for growth, the immediate opportunity for growth in the pure car business seems to be Europe. America, of course, we have this opportunity for growth, but I don't know that you necessarily agree with me, but I continue to believe that the gasoline price is a real issue in the United States. You just don't save enough in a lot of states in order to make it exciting just to save the gasoline. And so I think the transition in those states where gas is cheap, the transition is going to be harder, take longer. It'll be helped by the 2.5, the less expensive vehicle. I think that'll help. It'll be helped by Cybertruck when the price comes down more. But I think it is still going to take longer to make the transition here than it will be in Europe when they start getting less expensive vehicles and their price per gallon is like $8 a gallon or whatever.
It's crazy. I saw a gentleman on social media saying, I ran the numbers to see if an EV would work and I would save $1 a month. And of course, he posted his math, which everyone responded to, telling him, yeah, your math is entirely flawed. But he was also pretending that he lives in an area where power is 20 cents a kilowatt hour or a kilowatt, and that gas is 309.
I see.
I'm not aware of a place where that makes sense. So, of course, I did some digging to find where he lived, and that is not the rate where he lives. It's more like 12 cents, um, which is, or 14 cents. I don't remember. But right out of the gate, he's telling lies. And even based on those lies, it still didn't add up. If you're only going to spend 10 grand in gas over the life of a vehicle,
Yeah.
it's hard. And you do, and the power's not free. The juice
Right.
isn't free. It doesn't justify a car being $10,000 more. You're not going to actually save money. But if the car's going to last longer, if it's going to be more worry-free, trouble-free, the equation becomes more interesting again.
Yeah, and that's my point, is that as the car comes down in price, as we have a Tesla that costs less, as it has full self-driving, it already has all these other benefits in terms of power and fun and over-the-air update and things of that nature. And of course, farts. We have to always remember nobody's caught up on that.
Nobody's caught up. It's weird. It's like they're not even trying.
All right, Brian. I think we've covered around the world as much as I'd like to today. And as always, I appreciate you coming on, and you should follow him on Future Dada.
Randy goes out of his way to get it wrong on purpose, and that's the most fun one yet.
Future Dada. Future Dada. Sounds like your boys. Future Dada.
Future Arizona, eh?
Oh, there you go. Future Arizona. That must be it. Future Aza. Follow him over there. Hit him up on Patreon. We look forward to talking to you next week when we won't talk about politics again, but at least we should know who's running the country by then. It's been great, Brian, as always, having you on board. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.